Welcome to Financial Clarity, the podcast dedicated to helping service-based small business owners achieve financial success. Join us as we demystify financial concepts, get practical tips from seasoned entrepreneurs, and discover strategies to increase profit and value. Hannah Smolinski here. I'm the host of the Financial Clarity podcast, where I connect successful entrepreneurs, financial experts, and leaders in the small business community. Past guests include Melissa Jacobs, a growth accelerator who helps businesses use their marketing budgets more strategically to increase overall sales, and Jason Swank, the former owner of an 8-figure marketing agency who sold the business and now teaches other agency owners how to do the same. So if either of those sound interesting to you, please make sure and go and check out those episodes. Today's episode is brought to you by my company, Clara CFO Group. Clara CFO is dedicated to providing financial clarity and profit maximizing solutions to small businesses. The team at Clara CFO are seasoned accounting professionals with a heart for small business. We help growth-minded entrepreneurs thrive through fractional CFO services and financial education. To learn more about Clara CFO Group and how we can help your business, visit claracfo.com. So I met today's guest, Darla Powell, when I was on her podcast, Wingnut Social. And a big thank you to Julie Fry's company, Your Expert Guest, for connecting us. Please make sure to go and check out that interview with Julie because we interviewed her here on our podcast. If you're interested in learning more about podcast guesting and how it can be helpful in your business, or you can also go and check out her website at yourexpertguest.com. So Darla is an interior decorator turned marketing founder of Wingnut Social, a digital marketing agency for home pros. So Darla, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. I'm excited to talk to you. It's been a minute.
Yeah. It's kind of crazy how time flies because I feel like I did kind of a little bit of a podcast guesting loop for a little bit. And and then like a whole year goes by and then you're like, oh, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, that's a thing. Maybe, we should get back to that. Yeah, for sure.
Yes.
First, I want to say Julie Fry, the best. So
Yes.
Your expert guest. So I wholeheartedly support and endorse.
Well, that is nice to hear because you are the recipient of like her guest. So that's like really good, like seeing it because I saw it from the other side of being the customer and then you're the recipient. So I'd say all around we have a 360 good review over here.
For sure.
I love it. Well, Darla, your bio is very short and sweet, which is great, but I would love to hear the more detailed story of how you got, tell us a little bit more about yourself and then how you kind of went from this interior decorator life to now a marketing agency owner.
Yeah, so I like short and sweet bios, right? Because I like to just get right into the meat of the matter. But the long story, and I'll try to shorten it as best I can, is before I was even an interior decorator, interior designer, I was in law enforcement.
Oh,
I was a sergeant with Miami-Dade Police Department down in Miami. I worked pretty much every district there, from Liberty City to Ag Patrol out in the farmlands, protecting the crops or protecting the potatoes, as my stepdaughter would say. And I just was in that for 18 years, and I'd always done design and decorating on the side. And I said, you know what? Let me start a side hustle. So I started Darla Powell Interiors, which was an interior design firm, and marketing it started on Facebook, got it on Instagram. And I really researched how to do that in an effective way. And the design piece really took off. I started getting clients and paying clients. And I realized I spoke to my partner at the time and said, I can't do both of these well. I can't be a sergeant and give that 100% and be an interior designer and give that 100%. I have to pick one. Mm-hmm. So I gave my lieutenant 2 weeks notice. And I just did a Hail Mary and did Darla Powell Interiors. And through, again, long story short, through all of my marketing efforts, my peers in the industry would come to me and say, how are you getting all these magazine articles? How am I seeing you everywhere? What are you doing? Will you help me market my interior design firm? And I was resistant at first because I was busy. I was doing my own thing. But after so many requests, I sat down and said, I think there's an opportunity here. I think there's a need in this niche for someone who knows how to market using our vernacular, knowing what the business model looks like, the ins and outs of interior design. And I personally had a terrible experience with a generic one-size-fits-all marketing agency to try to market for my design firm. And it was terrible. It was awful. They were clueless about anything to do with interior design. And that was the icing on the cake. And so my nickname as a cop was Wingnut.
Oh,
Because I'm blessed with ADHD and I see squirrels. I'm really bad about it. So my compatriots called me Wingnut. And then I said, you know what, Wingnut Social. And then, very long story short, that the agency was born. We started, lots of mistakes. And here we are 5 years later, and not nearly as many mistakes, and have a pretty decent digital marketing agency for interior designers, architects, and vendors, home furnishings, manufacturers, etc.
okay. Wow. Okay. I did not see the law enforcement coming into play here. And I did want to ask you where the wingnut came from. So now you've answered multiple questions. Oh, look at that. She just
My
showed her
retired badge.
badge.
Yeah, got my
I love
retired
it.
badge if you're watching on the YouTube channel.
Yeah, if you are watching on YouTube, you can see it. Very cool. That's I so you had no kind of formal business training from what I'm hearing. You kind of
No, I
just
had
went for
none.
it.
None, zero. I'd always had an interest. My mother had antique stores and stuff.
Mm.
So I had a little bit of that inherited gumption to just go for it and go do things. My grandmother had antique stores. So I had lived a life of knowing how to style, like storefront windows and design and decorate ever since I was a kid. And I was doing the side hustles, like I said, for friends and family. But business wise, no. I
Mm.
got most of my information, believe it or not, from listening to podcasts, mainly A
Yeah.
Well Designed Business, Luann Nagara. If you're in the industry, you're probably familiar with hers, and getting the foundations, which got me started. But even still, listening to the podcast, it was quite the learning curve. There was a lot I didn't know, a lot I learned while trying to run a business and
Yeah.
make those margins, make a profit. And I made a lot of mistakes. And I liken the mistakes that I made. Some of them were very expensive to the price of my college business education.
Right.
Right. My non-college business education, I should say, but yeah. None, no formal, nothing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that even if you go to college for business school, I think that it doesn't translate very well to running a small business. Like maybe if you have some entrepreneurship classes or something like that, but I think it doesn't really prepare you for the actual day to day. What do you do to actually go and sell your things and or your service or whatever it is? So kind of this school of hard knocks is really, what we have to do to get our small businesses off the ground most of the time.
Yeah. With the design side, I was incredibly fortunate because I was a member of a lot of Facebook business groups.
Mm,
And really, to my surprise, I discovered that the interior design industry is incredibly giving, generally speaking, with knowledge and helping business. I guess as long as you're not their direct competitors, nationwide, but even then sometimes, because not every interior designer's ideal client is the same as the next, right? So it's pretty specific to our design, our aesthetic, how we work with our ideal clients. But I got a lot of information just from networking and getting mentors and picking brains. And still, I'm kind of hard headed, still kind of doing what I wanted to do and making mistakes. But that saved my bacon, was really just getting in there and doing the research and the networking. But it was a lot. It wasn't until I was probably in my third or fourth year of business I was finally just okay. I had systems and processes the way I wanted them. I was making a profit the way I wanted them. I had my team set up. It was quite a struggle.
yeah. Well, I mean, 3 to 4 years in, making the profit that you want, that's pretty impressive. So
Well, thank you.
I want to say good work there because
Oh,
I've seen many, many businesses who've worked for many, many years that are not achieving
yeah,
what they would really like.
yeah. It takes a
So,
while. It takes a while. It does take a while.
yeah. Well, so the home pros that you're talking about. So you,
Mhm.
obviously you understand the language of the interior designer, interior decorator. How did that kind of also does that really translate really well also to other home professionals,
Mhm.
these
It does, and
contractors or
yeah, it really does in the way that we're aligned in the consultation piece and the scope of work piece and in the proposal piece and then the service piece. And then, so it really, really does. And a lot of our vendors, a lot of our to the trade manufacturers that we work with, their clientele is kind of similar. They're
Mhm.
people who are wanting to beautify their space, make it more functional. Right. And of course, when we interview our clients at Wingnut, we're determining, we're doing market research to say, okay, who is your ideal client and how are we reaching them, right? But there's a little bit of a crossover there. And a lot of our vendors are to the trade only. So their target audience actually are other interior designers. So we can deconstruct that, and really just hit that on the head. So there is a lot of crossover. But when it comes to marketing, especially digital marketing, there's really a core skeletal framework because it's kind of binary, even though it's always changing on best practices and strategies and how to reach people on digital, as long as you're staying on top of the trends and everything that's changing. But what I find that's really different with the interior designer piece, and it wasn't resonating with me with the one size fits all company, is the messaging and the way you want to be perceived as a company, as an interior designer. They were putting out ads that were more like widgety, low end, like not very elegant or elevated copy and graphic design, and they weren't feeling my voice, my messaging, and what I wanted to put out. And that was a big piece that was missing. And that's something that we do from the beginning, is making sure that we have all that research and we have that ready to go before we even create a scrap of content, because it's a considerable investment. And we just don't want to be throwing up stuff on social and hoping, people find it. We want it to be purposeful.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure one size fits all. I actually don't know how that works out. Maybe that works for some people, just if that's their business, because they have a lot of churn and maybe they can just get new people in. But yeah, I mean, customizing the message to what you really want to be putting out into the world is huge. So
Yeah.
did you ever, I mean, usually people, when they start their businesses, they're like, I'll serve anybody, anybody who wants to come to me. But it sounds like you actually started your business in a niche because people were coming to you. So did
Yeah.
you ever branch out and be like, maybe I could do this for an e-commerce business, or maybe I could do this for a therapy office? I don't know. Did you ever get tempted to go that direction?
I was tempted. And in fact, in the early stages of my business, I partnered with a marketing agency coach, and she was really, really helpful in one aspect. And she got me to raise my prices, which there's a lot of resistance there, let me tell you. But in
Mm,
the other aspect, she had me broaden my verticals over from interior design to hospitality and travel and tourism. And at the time I thought, oh, well, she's the expert. That's a really good idea. And it bombed. It didn't work
uh,
at all. Because what happens is when you broaden your reach too much, and even though that's more things to more people, it's not all things to all people. You're really nothing to no one.
right.
People really want to utilize your services and seek you out because you specialize in what it is that they do. And a lot of business owners are afraid to do that. Interior designers are afraid to do that. Like, interior designers will come to us and say, I do all levels of design and all aesthetics. And they wonder why their business isn't really doing as well, because when you do that, everybody does that. When you niche, you're the expert, you're the specialist in that space, and you'll find that your business will increase because you have that value proposition for that particular clientele, and you'll be booked, 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 booked.
Mm, yeah. How long did it take you to realize that that was not a
About
winning
a year,
strategy? Okay.
about a year. And
Yeah.
I was like, you know what? This isn't working. So I went back to my core, what it is that I just kind of internally, organically did without even knowing that I was doing it, niche for interior designers. And where we uh, differentiate or broaden our reach with our different verticals is still in the interior design space. It is, like I said, to the trade vendors or home furnishings, that bubble right there. Nothing else. We did have a dentist for a while, but that was my dentist. He was the sweetest. But we don't do anything else but that. And
Yeah.
when I do sales calls with clients, they're incredibly relieved to hear that, because they've been with other agencies that do the widgets or do automotive or do home healthcare or what have you. And there's a disconnect.
hmm Do you specialize in any particular social platform, or are you do you have team members that kind of are experts in lots of different platforms?
Yes.
A little bit.
So in the interior design space, Instagram is really the most impactful channel right now because most of our clients are residential interior designers.
Mm.
We have commercial interior designers where LinkedIn is very effective. And we even have some interior designers who are on TikTok or on YouTube Shorts. Not as many though, although I do see that gaining traction for interior designers and brands to get clients and to get customers and to grow their business. But Instagram is probably 90% of our client base right now. And we excel at marketing on Instagram, but we also do LinkedIn. Facebook, not as much, just because it's not the ROI there isn't what it used to be, and it's
Yeah.
not as impactful. And LinkedIn, Pinterest, TikTok, we do all of those. We don't have anyone on Twitter or X as it is now, just because for interior design, for the investment, it's not really
Yeah.
it's not really there. Yeah.
Yeah. I could see for something so visual like interior design, maybe Twitter is not necessarily where you need to put a ton of dollars.
Yeah. I mean, if you have the unlimited budget, it's good to have a presence there. In fact, I had a sales call today and she found me on Twitter and I'm like, oh, that's a first.
Yeah.
Or X. It's hard to say X
Yeah.
versus Twitter. Yeah.
Yeah. So you mentioned ROI
Mhm.
and on Facebook, you said that it's hard to get ROI or hard to measure ROI. How do you help your clients understand, the investment that they're making and how it can reflect back to them on the return on that investment?
So the first thing to know is that organic social media is a bit of a long game, right? And there's different stages of the marketing piece that are kind of always happening, but also happen in stages. So there's the building your brand reach and awareness and getting those touch points, those eyes on your brand, regardless of whether or not they engage or follow. You're building that awareness, right? At the risk of being redundant. And the second part is when you get that awareness, them coming over and engaging with your account and realizing that, hey, Susan McNuggets is an interior designer. She exists. I like her content. Let me follow her. Okay, here she is again. You know what? A year, it could be a year from then. I want to do $100,000 reno in my kitchen. Yeah, that interior designer I was following, right? And
Mhm.
it serves as that. It can be a direct lead funnel for potential clients, but also it serves as gravitas or social proof when they're going to someone's website and then they go over to their social media and they see the branding is consistent, the messaging is consistent or professional or what have you. Everything is across the board. The details paid attention to. People are commenting, engaging. There's enough care and attention being taken to comment back, and that's indicative of how you're going to run yourself as a business, run the business in that attention to detail and that level of care and professionalism. When I go personally and I'm searching, say, a service business on Instagram, and I look at their account and it's kind of underwhelming, or they have a whole bunch of comments and no one's answering it, I lose a little bit of confidence in them
Mm.
because I'm like, either they're too busy or too overwhelmed or don't care. And I'm wondering, is that how my project's going to be run? Is that the kind of attention to detail that all the I's are going to be dotted, all the T's are going to be crossed? And so there's that element. And we have interior designers that have been with us that started at a $500,000 firm or a little bit less that are $4 or $5 million firms right now. And they've been with us for 3 or 4 years because we managed to build that momentum and build that know, like, and trust. And now it's just going forward. So it does take a while. So that's the first thing that I would say is it is a long play. It is an investment.
Hmm.
But, in the interior design space, our projects are not inexpensive, right? So if you sign one, maybe two clients, your whole year of marketing is pretty much
Yeah,
covered. So
absolutely.
if you can hang in there, and do it right, it pays off incredibly well.
That's a good thing to keep in mind, I think, for B2B services is, maybe it's not about getting the million followers. I think sometimes people think when they have a
Mhm.
social strategy that maybe it has to have this like huge target of like, wow, I need to impress people with these numbers. But when you think about how many leads, how many quality leads you really need to come into the business,
Yeah.
your numbers are probably much, much, much lower.
Yeah.
Most of us running service-based businesses, if we're, even million, couple million, I mean, maybe we need 10 new clients a year, maybe we need 20, maybe 30. Like we're not talking about these multiple zeros of
Yeah.
needing that. So I like that. It kind of takes a little bit of the pressure off. And then I liked what you said too about, the social proof of if they're looking at your Instagram.
Right.
To me, it was almost like, wow, this is almost like a customer service indicator. Is
Hmm.
almost what you were,
Exactly.
saying that it was, which I have never thought about social in that way before.
Yay.
Yeah. So, and now I'm like, oh, yes, my Instagram is very unimpressive. But if anybody wants to go and check out my Instagram, you can, and then you can judge it if you would like. But maybe
We
definitely
can
not.
talk. We'll talk after the show for
Yes.
sure. Yeah.
Yes, for sure. Well, yes. Okay. So you have Instagram makes a lot of sense because, especially for the niche that you're in, a lot of
Mm.
probably photography. I know that I love to see like projects. Like if I'm looking at somebody, I want to look and see like before and afters. I want to go and see like what they're doing or what their aesthetic is. What about, do you ever have businesses that come to you that aren't aesthetically based? And does Instagram still make sense if they don't maybe have tons of pretty pictures?
Yeah, we do have newer designers who come to us. I will say that our ideal client and where we tend to fall are those firms that are in the million to over $1 million range, and they usually have a pretty healthy portfolio. But from time to time, we'll get someone who's done their research and done their budgeting and they have everything right, but they don't have a lot of client work. And in that case, what we do is it's really important in the strategy piece and the content mix to know how much of their content is going to be original work, how much of it is inspo work, testimonials, videos of them doing educational or something, a talking head video behind the scenes. So it really depends on the strategy piece. And posting inspirational work in our industry is a little bit controversial.
Hmm.
Some interior designers are all for it because what it does is if you pick a work from another interior designer whose aesthetic is similar to yours or it's aspirational work, something that you want to convey to your followers, this is the kind of work I can do, I want to do, and this is my aesthetic, that it's really helpful. It really helps to grow your account and vice versa. Yes. Is that the right word? I don't know. It
Mhm.
helps to grow the person's account that you're sharing. So it's a
Mhm.
really great mutual collaboration there.
Mhm.
But some interior designers are of firm belief that only their work needs to be up there. They don't want to share anyone else's work. It's a thing. So wherever you fall in that, that's perfectly fine. But I will say that it's if you do share work with proper credit, attribution, photography, all of that stuff, as long as they have the rights to the photography, and there's a whole list of things there to make sure is right, that is an incredible way to grow your account and to grow the person who's agreed to say yes, yes, you can share this account and it gives you content.
Mhm.
My only caveat there would be not to share it if they're in your direct market. Or, if they're going to, if they're your competition, like if you're in Florida and they're in
Mm.
California, that's probably smarter than if you're in Florida and they are up next door to do
Mhm.
that. So that is something as well. And you can also, for interior designers who have not a lot in their portfolio. What I did when I started Darla Powell Interiors was I remodeled my house. And a lot of interior designers do this, and I documented that. And I wrote blogs on that, and I took pictures of that, and that really started the phone ringing to get the clients. That wasn't a small investment, but it
Right.
paid off. Yeah, it paid off for sure. So there's ways around doing that, and of course we have our graphic designers, and then there's blogs you can share, and there's so many ways around that. But of course, having a very healthy portfolio helps.
Yes. Yeah, I can
Yeah.
imagine. Are you are a lot of or I guess you said that a lot of your clients are kind of starting to dabble maybe with some video, YouTube
Mhm,
shorts, reels, things like
mhm.
that. Do you have any opinions on using reels um also on TikTok, also on YouTube shorts, like and using basically the exact same content across all three
Mhm.
platforms? Because I'm
Yeah.
seeing that because I follow some of
Mhm.
the same people on all
Sure.
these different platforms and I'm starting to see it. So is there any
Mhm.
downside of doing that?
Yeah, there's a downside to doing that because each channel has its own particular audience, right?
Mhm.
Your audience on Facebook won't be the same audience on Instagram, won't be the same audience on Twitter or X, etc. So that's a little bit of a downside. If you just do a blast and shoot them all out at the same time, you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot a little bit because you're not really giving anyone a value proposition of why they should follow you on any given channel. And I see that too. I follow some people I love on TikTok. And then when I go to their Instagram, I'm just seeing repeats of their TikTok. But there are
Right.
some tricks to get around that.
Mm.
So what you can do is, and it's a really good idea to repurpose content. It makes it more efficient, more economical, because it's not a small thing to make a TikTok. It's actually kind of a high barrier to entry to do it, to edit it, to learn it, to learning curve. But when you can take that raw video without a watermark and post it to your Instagram or post it to YouTube Shorts on a different day, on a different time, and kind of rotate that around. So maybe the person that missed it when you first posted on TikTok are going to catch it on YouTube Shorts a week later, or Instagram on another day, to mix it up. That helps to kind of fill in those gaps and to cover those bases, and makes it less just like a scatter shot.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah. I've always kind of wondered about that, but that does make sense. Maybe just like mix it up a little bit more.
Yeah. And try to avoid the watermark, right? So if you can upload the raw video and make it, because when you look at them on Instagram and then the YouTube thing, the TikTok thing comes up after the reel, you're like, I'll just follow them on TikTok for that,
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I downloaded an app and I can't think of what it is at the moment. But I should pull up my phone. Hold on. Hold on. Of course it's called SnapTick. Have you ever used
okay.
that?
No, that's a new one.
So because I like to record, if I do a TikTok video, I like to record it on TikTok because I like their filters and I like some of their editing features a little bit more, but more than like YouTube, although I'm on YouTube a lot more. So I would take my TikTok video and then take the URL and put it into SnapTick, and it removes the watermark. Because if anybody has never done this before.
Hold on, you're giving me tips now. I got to write that down.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's probably other apps that do it too, but that watermark removal is, and you could do this with past videos too. If somebody already has like TikTok videos, you can remove the watermark off of them and use them on Instagram or something, things like that. So
nice.
I found that to be helpful, and it's like a pretty easy little app to use. So
that's a very cool tip. Thank you so much. We just take the raw video because we edit them in-house. Yeah.
You guys probably have a lot more editing power than I do on my side.
Maybe, I don't know. I do have an editor who does all of our YouTube Shorts and all of our reels for the podcast. So maybe
I don't do it. Well, I want to ask you some questions about your business, but before that, I know you have a lot to share about Instagram, and for people who are looking to learn more about Instagram, I know you have an offer or is it a course? You have something for Instagram.
Yeah. So our marketing agency, like I said, gets interior designers, design build firms, and manufacturers that are pretty big businesses, right? In the multi-million dollar businesses. So a lot of my podcast audience, though, they're learning about the business. They're learning how to grow the business. They're just getting their feet wet, and they're not really in a position to delegate the social media marketing out so much. So since Instagram is really the number one channel driving business for our clients here at Wingnut Social, I thought, why not have a course, an online course to meet the needs of designers who are just starting out, or maybe smaller firms who want to delegate their Instagram marketing in-house, but they don't quite have an idea about what they need to do. They're overwhelmed. They have no idea what to post, who they're reaching, who their ideal client is, how to optimize their account, just how to hashtags, captions to get engagement, no clue. So Instagram for interior designers is a course we launched in March of this year, 2023, as we're recording this. And it walks you through all of that, how to create the whole strategy with workbooks and worksheets to figure out your avatar, your ideal client, your competitor research, all of that stuff that we do here at Wingnut before we work on content for any of our clients. And that's our very first course at Wingnut Academy that we launched this year. Yeah. And we're pretty proud of it. We already have people saying who just launched their business saying they're already signing big clients from using those skills and techniques and strategy that they found in the course. And that was terrific. I got a DM from someone saying, I just want to thank you so much for this course. I launched in a big way, and she's already booked out until next year with the client. I'm like, wow, okay, great. She's doing a lot better than I did when I started.
Yeah, I mean, you're giving the keys, the shortcuts to
Mhm.
somebody to figure out what they need to do quickly. And I mean, that's
Yeah.
anything with a course. Like for just reminder, anybody, if you take a course, you got to do the course.
Yeah.
Like if you buy a course, you got to do the course to get the
Yeah.
value out of it. Because most courses, like, don't people don't actually finish them. And I've
Yeah.
been guilty of that myself, buying
I have
something
too.
and not
Yeah.
finishing it.
I have
Um,
too. I bought
that
them and
sounds
not even
great.
looked at them. And I even had one client said, "You're going to put yourself out of business with this course." And if you as business owners, we know that there's two type of people, right? There's the people that will roll up their sleeves and just do it and get in there and do it themselves. And then there's the other person who's like, "I don't have time for this. Screw this. I just want it
Exactly.
done for me." And that's where the full service agency piece comes in. So we're hitting
Yeah.
the best of both worlds there.
Yeah, I love that. And then I I think there's a lot of times where people might really love to work with you, but like if it's financially not,
Yeah,
reasonable for them to do so, that lets you serve the clients that you guys really want to have in your agency and, reserve that time for the people who
exactly.
can afford it and you're not having to lower your prices just to fit, somebody who really wants to work with you. So it's a really, best of both worlds. I love it. Um, well, I'd like to ask you a little bit about the agency. And could you tell us a little about your team? I know you've been building the team over the past couple years. What does it look like now?
All women.
Ooh,
Women own,
love it.
all women. That just kind of naturally kind of happened. So right now I have three, four full-time employees, two part-time, and one podcast producer on the team. And they all have some varying degree of education from their bachelor's to master's in marketing or journalism, communications, or digital marketing. And they all know way more than I do, which is what I love. I love to,
Yes.
always hire someone smarter than you. So I do the podcast and I do the sales and all that, but they're millennials, right? So I'm just like, you have at it. You go. And they do it. I'm so proud of them. They do such a good job. We have a newly promoted director who started out with us as social media manager 2.5 years ago. And now she's the assistant director, actually, Abigail Weidman. And she's killing it. And it's just been so crazy to see her growth over the 2.5 years. And I'll come up with something and we work with Google G Suite or Google Chat or whatever it's called, Google Workspace. And I'll come up in the chat and say, "Hey, have you thought about doing this, that, or the other thing?" And she'll reply, I already sent that email. And I'm like, okay, what am I doing with my life now? It's amazing. I love it. I'm very happy with my team.
That's so great. I love when like that we can hire people smarter than us
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
hire people who are better at the things that we are not good at. And, they're probably super happy that you're doing the podcast and you're focused on sales and you have that expertise and that's something that you feel comfortable doing. And they can just go and get all that work done. So I love it when a team works so seamlessly like that. Are you guys remote? Are you across the country or what does it look like with your
Yeah. So we're
geographic?
nationwide. We're
Okay.
nationwide in the US. I have three people in California, I have people in Tennessee, I have people in New Jersey, someone in Charleston. I'm probably forgetting. Did I say Tennessee? I think
Yeah.
I did. South Carolina. I have them everywhere. I've forgotten, half of where everybody lives. But yeah, we all work remote. We don't really have a brick and mortar office, which can be challenging sometimes because even though in this day and age we have these Zoom calls and it's almost like kind of talking to people in real life, it isn't. Right. So sometimes I wish that I could go maybe set up a brick and mortar office in DC and have that team, but then I would lose that whole nationwide, pool of candidates to source. So that's been really very convenient for clients because we have clients in California, we have clients on the East Coast, we have clients in the middle. So when we assign a social media manager or an SEO manager to them, we take that in consideration for communication. So that's how we can work nationwide. A lot more convenient for us and for the
Yeah.
client.
So I know a lot of marketing agencies will rely pretty heavily on contractors rather than having
Mhm.
employees. So did you go through any time where you were relying more on contractors before you went into this employment model, or do you still leverage contractors pretty heavily?
I don't leverage contractors at all. And the
Wow.
reason why is because I had a horrible experience, a couple of horrible experiences. And I think that, I'm sure this isn't true. And if you're a contractor out there, this isn't directed at you. I'm sure you do terrific work. But the experience that I've had with contractors has been they don't have the same pride and ownership of in the quality of the product they put out. I was contracting with an SEO company 2 years ago, and tried a couple of clients through there and saw some of the product they were putting out and fired them pretty straight away and took it over, just went in house with it, just because they were not at the level that we wanted to be, or we are known as Wingnut Social. We're a pretty high end white glove agency for it, and I've been turned off from doing contractors ever since. So everybody who's employed at Wingnut is in the U.S. and is an actual either part-time or full-time employee. Will I ever do contracting again? I guess it would depend on the actual person and that relationship with the person, but I am pretty gun shy about it.
Yeah. I prefer an employment model
Yeah.
personally. I mean, we advise a lot of marketing and communications agencies here at Clara CFO, and there's stability, I think, in
Hmm.
the employee model. And there is, I mean, yes, maybe a more of a financial concern. And I think that's why a lot of people maybe go to the contractor model first, because
Yeah.
they think, oh, well, if it doesn't work out, I can just, not give them work. But when you have a salaried employee, they need to be paid, one way or
Hmm.
the other. So maybe what is one of the things you've done to help consistently drive revenue at a place where you can afford the employment model, where you have salaries and payroll to run on a really regular basis?
Make sure my pricing's where it needs to be to cover that. And when I first started out, it was embarrassingly not. It was so low. I won't even tell you how low it was.
Very common. Don't worry.
I was giving it away. And my agency coach now says, even now, my agency coach wants me to raise my prices, and I still have pushback on, I still have resistance. I think that's a thing that we all experience, is like, and he says, well, why do you want to, what was it? Why do you want to pay people for the privilege of working with you? We're not there yet, because I did raise my prices to where we are profitable and we're seeing good margins, for sure. But it's not even just that. It's that just I realized after being in it for so long that the amount of hours and work to do this marketing piece right demands a certain price in order for us to stay in business and to do it well and to keep hiring. And what I like to do is I hire ahead of capacity, right? So if we're at full capacity, then I see my team. If I want to keep sales going, if I want to keep scaling and growing, I hire ahead of it on a part-time basis.
Mm.
And then when that capacity grows to where I can take that employee to a full-time basis, then I just do that. And then that's been working out really well. People, social media managers will start with us on a part-time basis, and it's kind of a trial basis. You have your typical 90 days, which is pretty typical in all jobs, but it's part-time, so the investment is lower, right? And you're getting to see how they work, how they communicate, how they show up to work. And then when the capacity comes in, when the new clients come in, if they've proven that they're who you want to keep on full time, then they get promoted, they get all the benefits, they do all that. And there, of course, there's full transparency when we hire and say, listen, this is the gig, this is what it could evolve to. Are you okay with that? And I have some people that start part-time that never want to go full-time. That's
Yeah.
okay too. That's fine.
I love that. Just from the beginning, bringing them on, because that is always that challenge of like, that's the chicken and egg. Do you have the people first, or do you have the clients
And
first?
it's quite a balancing act. I got that advice actually from Mike McAllowitz.
Oh
I
yeah.
don't know if he was on the show and he said, hire part-time to start with. And I'm like, wow, that's why you're a multimillionaire author.
Yeah. So you
Okay.
do have really great insights.
And I've been doing that ever since, and it's been terrific. It's really worked out well.
Yeah, we've leveraged some of that too, with our CFOs, because a lot of times, like fractional CFOs, they're kind of in a different place in their career where maybe like part time is actually exactly what they want for a while.
Yeah.
So that can be it, kind of depending on your industry, something you think about. Um, if so, I imagine then, are you on like a retainer revenue model then, where you have that
Yeah.
really certainly helps with cash flow and
Yeah, for
keeping.
sure. So we have at Wingnut we have an agreement that's either 6 months or 12 months, depending on the end goal and the ROI. Remember, it is a long game. So that's automatic through Stripe, monthly revenue coming in. So there's a certain dollar amount MRR every month. So that isn't something to worry about. And then we have the one-offs, the project pieces. Some clients will come to us just for the strategy so they can delegate that to someone in-house. Some clients come in just for an SEO audit or one-offs. Those aren't as often as the clients who get that and go full service, but that's fine too. So it's really that MRR is the most important one that I'm looking at because that's the baseline, right?
Okay.
And then of course we have courses and things like that, but
Love it. So for anybody who maybe doesn't use MRR, that's monthly recurring revenue.
Myrrh.
Yeah. I imagine that's a KPI you track pretty closely then.
Very extremely. Yeah. That to me is my most important. That, and, any churn and making sure clients are happy and not leaving, they're staying, because it's so much easier to keep clients than it is to get new clients. And that's super, super important. You want to make sure that you're over delivering and making sure that the communications are key. Or if you have anything that you want, like say you have SEO services and you have existing clients, then that's the best person to say, hey, here's this SEO service as well, because they're there and they've already proven they want to do business with you and they're happy clients. Yeah. So that's the most important thing. And every team meeting, that's when I'm, okay, who's happy? Who's, who do we need to work on? And because that's gold. It's costs so much more to get a new client than it does to keep one. Yeah. Well, and especially if you're in a business like yours, where I imagine you could keep clients for years and years and years if they're happy. That is a major, that little investment in their happiness is a major ROI. So yeah, for sure. Oh, well, we're going to have to wrap up, which I don't want to, but I have another question for you. I guess my last question before I ask it, I want to make sure to point people to your website, and that is wingnutsocial.com, correct? Yes. Okay. Yes, that's correct.
And so earlier you mentioned that you were listening to podcasts when you first got your business up and running. So what is your favorite podcast now? I imagine you still listen to them.
I do. So my favorite business podcast is still Luann Nagara's Well-Designed Business, because that's my industry. I'm pretty partial to mine. I have Designed by Wingnut Social is pretty good. And I have a guilty pleasure. It's called The World of Phil Hendry.
Oh,
he's crazy. I used to listen to him back when I was a kid in Miami on WIOD, and he does kind of a comedy podcast, but he's a unique kind of guy. He does it's almost like a one-man show with different characters, and it's theater of the mind, and he's just crazy and terrific. And I'm kind of like Wingnut, I just really enjoy his show. I think that's my favorite.
Love it. I like that there's always personal and then there's business. Because there's so many amazing podcasts. Everybody's doing amazing things online. So thank you for sharing that with me. How else can people get connected with you?
We're at Wingnut Social on every social media channel, consistency and, all that. And just at wingnutsocial.com. That's where you'll find us. Check out Wingnut Academy if you're interested in the interior design, Instagram for interior design course. And that's it. Simple. Awesome. Well, Darla, thank you so much for being on the podcast. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. Thanks for listening to the Financial Clarity Podcast. Be sure to check out the show notes to learn more about today's episode and click subscribe on your favorite podcast app.